4. Yep. Excellent. Hello to you if you are... Oh, have you sent a link out, by the way? Haven't sent a link. Have we sent a link yet? You're not going to send a link. If you found us on the YouTube channel without a link, congratulations to you. As you know, we're busy putting together our Day 2 podcast for Totally at the Euros, and it's going to start with a bit of an intro, which I'll record later on. But then this, Saturday, June 15th, it is Day 2 at the Euros. Every night, live on our YouTube channel, you can find us laying down that evening's podcast in all the kind of behind-the-scenes glory. So why not try that at the Totally Football Show? Tonight, anyway, we bring you all the way from Dortmund. We're going to be hearing from James Horncastle a little bit later on. We're going to be hearing from Paul Balouse, talking about the magnificent Spain performance against Croatia. There's Carl Anker, talking up Denmark, Slovenia, and in and around all of that, we got JJ Bull in the studio. Hi, JJ.
Hello.
And a very special welcome to Daniel Storey, all the way from that Germany. Hey, Daniel.
Hello, James.
How's it been going for you so far over there?
Yeah, pretty good. We've got a lovely house in the country near Herborn, about an hour east of Cologne.
I wouldn't have chosen that interior, but
this evening because I was at Hungary, Switzerland today, and I'm off to Gelsenkirchen tomorrow morning for Serbia versus England tomorrow night.
Wow. I wouldn't have chosen that interior, Daniel.
No, it does look like I'm having a sort of small bonfire behind me to keep warm. I'm not.
Okay. Daniel, Day 2 saw the youngest player ever at the Euros and the fastest goal ever scored at the Euros. What else have we learned on Day 2?
Well, I enjoyed watching the Bologna takeover of the Switzerland team. I thought that Dan and Doy and Michel Abisha were their two best players, and Remo Freuler was next to one of them in midfield, who was also a Bologna player. So that's kind of my takeaway from that game. Hungary inevitably heralded as the dark horses were really, really disappointing. They will have a huge task on their hands. They're going to have to beat Scotland and hope that 3 points is enough, basically. They were poor. But yeah, the Spain performance was unerringly, worryingly efficient against Croatia.
Yep. Day 2, we got the Bolognese then and Spalletti, which brings me on to something I wanted to ask you about, JJ, which was food banter, which has been strong on Day 2. We had Swiss fans holding up banners saying fondue is better than goulash.
Saw that one, yeah.
I'm not sure how UEFA allowed that kind of provocative material into the stadium.
Shocking, really.
But outside the grounds, meanwhile, ugly scenes.
Yes, I mean, terrifying scenes, you might say, that where some Albanian fans held some spaghetti and cracked it in half in front of some watching Italian fans who were part of the joke. It's very funny. I like that bit.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Is this going to be a big thing at the Euros? And in which case, what will the Serbia fans taunt the English supporters with, do you think, in Gelsenkirchen?
Well, according to reports, they might do a little bit more than taunt England fans tomorrow. I think England fans are being kind of recommended that they go out to the fan park, which is at the racecourse. There's not an awful lot in Gelsenkirchen, but I think what there might be is quite a lot of Serbia fans. So I think if they break sort of Yorkshire puddings in front of us, that's probably the best case scenario.
All right. Well, yeah, on a serious note, hopefully all will go smoothly on Sunday. Let's check then on results on Day 2. Switzerland were 3-1 winners against Hungary. Daniel was there. We'll hear from him shortly on that. The Swiss joining Germany on 3 points in Group A. Scotland very much bottom of that quartet. In Group B, Spain were 3-0 winners and fabulous against Croatia with Morata, Fabian Luiz and Danny Carvajal on the score sheet, and Lamine Yamal, youngest player in the history of the Euros, I can exclusively reveal, setting up that third goal. In the evening, Italy, Albania, 2-1 for the Azzurri. Huzzah. Now, we're talking about all those games very shortly. Away from the Euros, the other news on Saturday morning, meanwhile, was the really sad tidings of Kevin Campbell passing away, the former Arsenal, Everton and Nottingham Forest striker. Amy Lawrence has written a really lovely piece about Super Kevin, which is on The Athletic now, and there's been loads of pieces, a lot of coverage on Saturday, about his A, because it was such a surprise, B, because he was a player that on and off the field everybody absolutely loved. Daniel, as a Forest fan, I'm sure you have happy memories.
Yeah, I do. That 97-98 season, he was magnificently getting Forest up to the Premier League. Sorry, it was the 93-94 season we went up. He was brilliant in the Premier League. What's really sad is that in the summer of 1995, Forest sold Stan Collymore and got £8.5 million for him, which is a British transfer record, and they spent that money ostensibly on two players, Kevin Campbell and Chris Bart-Williams, who they signed on the same day. And they both became incredibly popular players at Forest, helped us get promoted, helped us kind of secure in the Premier League. And they're now both no longer with us, which is just a huge, horrible shock for Forest fans and obviously for the game as general. But as you say, James, and Amy's piece points out exactly, he's just a lovely man. I met him a couple of times and he was just a really, a gentle man, quite a private man, but someone who adored playing football, adored talking about football, and just a tragic loss.
So many wonderful memories he leaves behind, and our best wishes to his family, of course. All right, on to Saturday's action at Euro 24. Charlie, you're going to start with a bit of comms from the Spain. We're starting with Spain. James is not there yet, is he? No. Excellent. All right, YouTube viewers, we're just hearing that James Horncastle might be a little while, so we're going to start with Spain, Croatia. Woo! Olympic Stadium in Berlin Saturday afternoon. Spain 3-0 winners against Croatia. That meme with the guy walking on the street and his girlfriend, where the girlfriend is last night's Germany-Scotland first half. But now, all of a sudden, what we're all staring after is this Spain performance. Let's hear from a man who was there and is going to join us, in fact, now from the bowels of the Olympia Stadium, Paul Balous. And here, YouTube viewer, bit of patience, is where we play in what Paul Balous says. What did Paul Balous say? He basically talked, Daniel, because you weren't there, about how this Spain side is different to the one at the World Cup that dominated possession but didn't score goals. This one doesn't dominate possession, does score goals. We talked about the goals, which were obviously pretty good. We talked a little bit about why they're different now under De La Fuente with Yamal and Nico Williams, who, of course, he points out. And I then asked him about whether, a little bit like Germany last night, this doesn't answer any of the questions that we may have about Spain because they weren't really tested all that much. He said he thought that it was a bit of a test for them, but hey, there you go. I think that's a fair summary of what Paul Balous says. And YouTube listener, if you want to hear that from Paul rather than from me, then listen to our podcast when that's up. And he should be featuring in that. Very nice. All right, Paul Balous there from Berlin. All right, here's a stat just to illustrate the sea change in the Spanish approach. For the first time in 137 competitive matches, Spain did not have more possession. Oh, actually, I've got that stat completely wrong. Let's go again. Right. Paul Balous there at the Olympia Stadion in Berlin. Oh, here's a stat just to illustrate the change in Spanish approach. This was the first game in 137 competitive matches that Spain did not complete as many passes as their opponents. Wow.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
It felt not like that. They have a lot of the ball, I thought. So that is, I didn't know that. The possession was slightly less, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
It was. A little twist on that stat, Colin Miller pointing out that the last time that Spain didn't complete as many passes as their opponents, Lamine Yamal was not even 1 year old. Incredible. Daniel Storey, how good was Lamine Yamal?
Yeah, he looked to me kind of vaguely Wayne Rooney Euro 2004-esque in that he, whenever he got the ball, he seemed to, drag two players towards him who had heard about everything he does and how good he is, and also seemingly had more space than anyone else who only had one player on them. He was brilliant. He obviously his cross for the assist was beautiful. Dani Carvajal now, goal scorer Dani Carvajal. But just the way he stretches play and drags out wide, there's just no fear there. And maybe that comes later in a tournament, but certainly at the moment he looks like he's going to enjoy the group stage.
Yeah, he's turning that whole men against boys paradigm on its head, really. Here's another stat for you on this subject. He's had 7 goal contributions in 8 games for Spain, and he's 16 years of age.
He's really good. Yeah. I don't know how there's so many young players that are just ready to play at the men's level. It's kind of nuts, but he's actually one of the best players on the entire pitch. And the good thing is that hopefully he won't get overplayed like certain other ones, like Pedri played today. Did well, I thought. They took him off at a good time, so he gets a bit of rest. I thought Spain were really decent in this game, and like Paul was saying, I'm sure in the bit, like having Williams and Yamal on those wings makes a big difference to Spain. And like even like the goal they scored with Morata is a new version of Spain, right? So being able to just hit it forward quickly through the middle, and they're like Croatia are opening up and they're creating that space in the middle, and the centre backs leaving too much space between them.
Right.
You wouldn't normally get that fast through ball to them, I think. I mean, maybe it was kind of obvious it was going on that he was going to run through there, but yeah.
How confident were you that Morata was going to finish that chance?
I actually thought he was going to score it, in all fairness to Morata. I know he has missed many in the past, but maybe it's the newfound focus of having the captain's armband that makes him shoot better.
Perhaps so. What were your thoughts on Croatia, Daniel Storey, assuming that you saw much of this on your way back from the early Switzerland-Hungary?
Yeah, there's going to be a problem in this tournament whereby if Croatia fall behind and don't establish a lead in the first half, then they're probably going to have to rearrange their whole midfield during the second half, because there's just not the legs there to chase a game. There are brilliant players in there, but they don't have an effective finisher. They don't have a high-class striker. Therefore, they're going to have to kind of knit the chances together. And that's really hard when you've got something like, I think the stat was that the three midfielders of Croatia in this game have more international caps than the whole of the Spain 11 put together. The experience is great, but there just needs to be some pace around them. And it doesn't look like the other players in that team are particularly pacey or creative. And it does leave an awful lot for Luka Modric to do. So, yeah, they look pretty ordinary. They did also miss a couple of chances second half. Obviously, they kind of fluffed the penalty by encroaching into the box as well and missing the penalty. But, yeah, Italy will fancy their chance against them, and then it makes it incredibly hard to qualify, put it that way.
Italy will be the next opponents for Spain in a game coming up next Thursday. And we'll be hearing about Italy and their victory over Albania very shortly. James Horncastle currently literally speaking to Luciano Spalletti, so we'll take care of that and then pick him up on the other side. But that's okay, because, Daniel, we can ask you about the early game on Saturday, which was, of course, Switzerland-Hungary, and sounded a little bit like this. All right, you were there in Köln, Daniel, for Switzerland's victory over Hungary. Switzerland, of course, are the next opponents for Scotland. Any good news for JJ that you can offer, Daniel?
Not really, no. I mean, Hungary very much sort of followed the Scotland playbook by both sitting very deep and also seemingly leaving loads of space behind the defence and in front of the defence. I was impressed by Switzerland's movement. I thought without Breel and Bolo they might struggle to create chances and it might be a sort of slog match. But actually, Dan and Doy was brilliant off the right. Kwadwo Duar, who must be one of these stories of this tournament. You know, he's playing his football in Bulgaria. 4 years ago, he was nowhere near a national team squad, and suddenly started scoring goals at the age of 23, and was a really late call up. And Bolo not fully fit. So in the space of 2 weeks, he's basically made his international debut, scored his first goal, and now scored at a major tournament. And him and Michel Abasher were by far the best players on the pitch. Were too good for Hungary, and then kind of just to seal it for Switzerland, and Bolo comes on. This kind of defining image of him coming on with this knee brace on. He had an ACL tear this season and literally shedding his knee brace to score the game clinching goal. So all good for Switzerland. Hungary were poor, but I still think, sorry JJ, they will be better than Scotland.
JJ, you were watching this as well. Do you concur?
That Hungary will be better than Scotland?
Yeah. With any of those points?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Switzerland looked pretty good in this game, but then I didn't realise before researching for all Euro 2024 stuff that they had a really good record in qualifying. I think it might be the second best expected goals of any team. I didn't know they don't have the finishers really, exactly like Daniel's talking about. I thought Hungary were really poor in that first half, but then I don't know what it is they changed. I need to watch it back and see what changed in that second half to make anything better. I think first half Switzerland had them tactically, things like the movements off the ball, like Abashur coming in inside, and oftentimes he's like a number 10, and you had Rodriguez would overlap, and just lots of rotations in wide areas. They always had numbers, like they always had a 4v3 at times, but things seem to balance out more in the second half, which is maybe a sign that the Hungary coach knows what he's doing.
All right, Daniel?
Yeah, I think if you're looking for dark horses in the tournament, which is sort of become the sort of pre-tournament pastime now, what you want to see is a spine of a team that is A, successful and B, experienced. And you look at that Switzerland team now, and it's got Jan Sommer as the goalkeeper, who's 35 and just won the Serie A title. You've got Manuel Akanji at centre-back, who's just won the Premier League title. And you've got Granit Xhaka in central midfield, who's just won the Bundesliga title and been probably one of the best players in the Bundesliga this season. That spine is going to be enough for them to get through this group. It might well be enough for them to trouble a team in the knockouts. We saw what happened against France at the World Cup. So there is enough there now. I think there's enough creativity and pace around those players. I don't think that was there 2 years ago. Certainly wasn't there at Euro 2020. So, yeah, they look really exciting today. I hope that they haven't kind of hoodwinked me into thinking they're going to be brilliant, as quite often happens in the first game. But yeah, the pace around the dependables is something really good to watch.
Excellent. Niche question, Claxon. This from Ander Iturralde. For JJ, did Switzerland's performance against Hungary on Saturday signify a win for positionism in its never-ending battle against relationism?
That is a debate that I neither know enough about to go fully into, and it's quite a heated debate between the tacticals, you would call them.
I want in.
Yeah, some people really you have to pick one. It's almost binary, you know.
All right. So the other day you were hinting at the kind of the shapes involved at relationism, which essentially is players sticking close to each other. No.
Well, it's kind of like, so if you think what Guardiola's done with positional play. I mean, most teams play positional play in those versions of it. So you have certain positions. You always have players in certain vertical lanes or horizontal lanes in certain parts of the pitch,
right?
So that you always have control of the game, and that you remove a lot of individualism and probably flair. So you basically give players instructions so they're almost robotic.
And that's positionism.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Whereas relationism has come in and turned that on its head.
Yeah, I think it's like Fernando Diniz in Brazil was playing with it quite a lot, and you see parts of it with like Ancelotti's Real Madrid. It's basically you give players some freedom to do what they want to do, with some structure.
Right.
So you get players bunched up in certain places, lots of movement to try and make things happen. And so you'll have, like, it's not the opposite of Guardiola football, where it's so structured and controlled and rigid that you can't really go out with the confines of the structure, but the structure works. But if you have relationism, then you have, I'm not doing this very well because it's quite complicated. There's a lot of things to it.
Very complicated.
But yes, very, especially when I'm describing it. And so then you get more free-flowing things in it. I think having it come from like Brazil, quite a good way to look at it.
Excellent. Daniel, you clear now? Daniel's clear now.
Yeah, I sort of feel vaguely Mike Bassett, England manager, all of a sudden, which is not my natural hunting ground.
Indeed not. Daniel, next up you'll be heading to Gelsenkirchen, as you mentioned, for England-Serbia. We'll be touching on that very, very shortly. But next, let's discuss the Saturday night encounter between Italy and Albania. From what I can hear, Spalletti's still talking. So let's give our thoughts first of all before we get Horncastle on the line from Dortmund, because it was an extraordinary start to the match, first of all. From an Albania perspective especially. Yeah,
it was. And the noise in the stadium sounded absolutely incredible. Obviously, I'm in Cologne this evening. I only watched the game on TV. But the noise sounded amazing. It sounded kind of 4-1, 5-1 in favour of Albania. And then they got their moment. And they might well lose every other game in this tournament, I think. But it felt magic. It felt like all the way through this tournament so far, we've had big teams emphatically reiterating why they are one of the favourites for the tournament. And ultimately, Albania didn't win. But that first 30 seconds of the game kind of felt heaven sent for a tournament. You need that. You need light and shade. And yeah, I was really disappointed with the way that they played from about minute 25 to minute 45, because it just felt like the emotion got a little bit too much for them, and they didn't really know how to play the game when Italy had come back to them. But a magic moment for the Euros. That would be kind of one of the goals that's in the highlights package at the end of the tournament on July the 14th.
Not for Federico Di Marco, whose wayward throw-in, which was kind of vaguely headed back to Donnarumma, not headed back, but going in that direction, didn't have anywhere near enough power on it, and in slipped an Albanian player, and Bosch, should really say his name actually. Who was it who scored?
Bajrami.
Bajrami scored, and after 22 seconds,
my word,
Albania had themselves the fastest goal in Euro history. Says Duncan Alexander. Pretty embarrassing to score early against Italy in a Euros match and then let them back into the game. But I don't know if Albania let them back in or if Italy just swaggered back upfield and snatched back control of this match in pretty emphatic fashion.
I feel like Italy had control of that game, even when they were 1-0 down. They just sort of did what they had to do, and then, although there's maybe a couple of scares later on in the game, I just feel like they had control of it, as they tend to in tournaments. It almost becomes a cliche, doesn't it? But I thought their out of possession stuff was really good, forcing Albania to play the way they don't want to, and then they just couldn't get the ball off them when they had it. And then, of course, you just kill the crowd by passing it around, and that's very frustrating to play against, which then means when you get the ball, you want to do something with it immediately, but you can't because you spent so long out of possession. I think that's the thing we've seen today, is good out of possession stuff has worked very well. I thought Spain's high press was really important into how they stopped Croatia playing. Just neutralised everything they wanted to do playing into midfield. And Italy, similar here. It's not always what you do with the ball.
Quick check, excuse me, YouTube viewer. Where are we at with Horncastle? So at this point, we'll have him in at the end, or what? Because we can't really stop, can we? All right. Not always what you do with the ball. Indeed not. All right. Well, the equaliser came from Bastoni, the centre half, kind of playing the Materazzi role. If you remember the giant inter-defender from 2006 and how key his headers were for that glorious Azzurri campaign. A Bastoni here. A lovely header to pull the Azzurri level, and then what can you say about Nicolo Barella's volley to put them ahead?
I like the way he's kind of using physics to counter out the spin on the ball to make it go straight in. I love that hit, and to work out how to do it so quickly, because it's instant reaction. I guess it sort of makes sense when you look at it where the ball was. I love those kind of goals.
All right. I mean, I doubt whether he actually thought at all. But something deep within, the core of the cortex of his mind will have articulated
AI,
his limbs. Yeah, amazing. And not just that goal, but his performance overall, Daniel, was... it illustrated why so much sweating had been done by the Italians over his fitness.
Yeah, he just has a way of recycling the ball. And he's the one Italian midfielder, certainly on Saturday evening, who... It was quite slow second half, but he's the one that when he gets on the ball, he doesn't just look to recycle the ball backwards with a backwards or sideways pass. He does look to drive forward a little bit. I thought the second half was slightly disappointing from Italy, and then you kind of realise that the group stage now is decided by head-to-head before goal difference. So in the past, I think you'd have had Italy going for that and thinking, well, Spain have won by 3, so maybe we need to score some goals against Albania here and improve our goal difference. It's now head-to-head, so they only needed to win the game, and as JJ said, they kind of did that by strangling Albania's players and then doing exactly the same to the crowd as well.
A couple of decent saves from Strakosha as well to keep things at 2-1 for the Azzurri, to keep Albania in the chance, but it finished, as you say, 2-1, and through they go to game 2 where they'll be facing Spain. What do you think of their chances in that match?
I don't know what to expect from that now. I think Italy look like they could have control of games if they want to, but equally Spain have... I think we saw from Spain is that they can do all the different bits you need to be able to... They can control the game they want to, they can press high if they want to, but they also now are able to hit teams in transition, which is something they didn't do before. So I think I'd believe any score you told me within reason.
All right.
If you predicted that one.
Not going to do that.
It's not strong analysis, is it?
No. It's going to be one of the games potentially of the group stages, but it'll be coming up on Thursday, so ample time to preview it before then. Let's get on next to the games which await us on Sunday. Quick word for Brighton, who have appointed Fabian Horzler as their manager, causing a bit of a stir. Because They take him from Bundesliga Sevilla, where he's just guided San Pauli to promotion, so the top flight. And B, because he's only 31 years of age. 31 years of age. Daniel Storey, it's madness.
Yeah, younger than the league itself. Unacceptable. Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly Brighton appointment. It's brave. It's slightly outside the box. It's judging a manager by the style of his football and how he may be able to implement that elsewhere rather than necessarily what he's achieved in top flight football. And it's incredibly exciting. I know Brighton fans were pretty worried about the prospect of Graham Potter coming back because of how he'd left and how it felt like a bit of a backward step, even though Potter's a good coach. So for that alone, I think there'll be a huge amount of goodwill around this appointment. And it does feel like a Brighton's kind of stepping back into owning their own situation, which I think they lost in the second half of last season under De Zerbi, who was fairly clearly engineering for a bigger or better move.
All right. Let's get back onto the Sunday action then on Euro 2024. JJ, 16 goals so far in the 4 games. That's 4 a game. Will that continue on Sunday? These are the 3 fixtures which we'll be seeing. In Hamburg, there's Poland and the Netherlands getting Group D underway. That's at 2 p.m. and it's followed by the 2 matches from Group C at 7 o'clock in Stuttgart. Sorry, not 7. At 5 o'clock in Stuttgart, Slovenia against Denmark. And in Gelsenkirchen at 8 o'clock, UK time, of course, Serbia, England. All right, Daniel, you'll be there. So let's hear what you've got to say about this match. Serbia, the great entertainers from the last World Cup, what kind of threat do they represent to an England team that has recently failed to beat Iceland?
They're not in particularly good form, Serbia, but what they have is 2 strikers who are their biggest threats, their best players. Dusan Tadic is a creative force who is getting on a bit now, but in Mitrovic and Vlahovic, they have a genuine threat and a genuine threat in the air. And England have lost Harry Maguire, they've lost their aerial threat. We suspect it's going to be Mark Guehi and John Stones, who are a defensive combination who haven't played very much of at all together. It looks like it's going to be Kieran Trippier at left back and Kyle Walker at right back. They're both pretty small. So I suspect Serbia will look to throw a lot of crosses into the box, play fairly direct, make the most of set pieces. And England could be caught out by that, no doubt. There is a degree of, I think, weariness within England's attacking players, but there is also a huge amount of choice for Gareth Southgate. And he talked again this week, which is, I'm sad to say, it's something that comes from rugby, but he talks about starters and finishers, and I kind of get it because there's so much on that bench now that if somebody isn't producing in the first 45, 50 minutes, we have got the option to change the game. I don't think Serbia have got that. I think they've got a plan A that may trouble England, but not a plan B.
I mean, we talk about Serbia's threats, but can you imagine what Serbian podcasts are saying right now about the threat that the English players represent for their team?
Yeah, and we've got La Liga's best player, we've got the Premier League's best player, and we've got the top goal scorer in Europe. Like, it should be fine. Maybe I'm being slightly circumspect because of my inbuilt angst and nerves ahead of every England game at a major tournament. Sometimes it helps England to feel like expectations have been reduced a bit. That's the kind of positive spin on the Iceland defeat, that all the players said it was a wake-up call. It shouldn't have been needed. I think it will persuade Southgate to be a little bit more subdued with his midfield selections. I think it will be Conor Gallagher in midfield, probably with Declan Rice, and then the others as a front load, and that front load should be enough to beat most teams in Europe. England need to be a lot better than they were against Iceland. They need to move the ball really quickly because Serbia are going to dig in. They're going to try and play direct, but dig in. And England are going to have to move the ball a lot quicker than they have done in the last 2 friendlies. All
right. The game coming up 8 o'clock on Sunday. The other match in the group is at 5 o'clock, and it's Slovenia against Denmark. Why should we watch that? Here is Carl Anker. Again, if you want to listen to the podcast version, listener, assuming you're still out there, hello, then you'll hear what Carl has to say. It won't take you long either. It's only about a minute or so. Carl, admirably brief there on the subject of Slovenia, Denmark. Now, before any of that happens, the Group C business, I'm excited to say that we get a first taste of Group D action as Poland and Netherlands, who are in that group alongside Austria and France, take to the field in Hamburg's Volksparkstadion. Poland, they were the team that had that 120 minutes without, was it a single shot on goal against Wales in the playoff? You saw them in one of their pre-tournament friendlies, JJ. Have they improved at all?
I don't. What did I say about Poland? They're okay. There's nothing. I don't think they really have an awful lot to them. Quite medium, I would say, and I think they have enough about them to be able to get results like 0-0s and 1-0s, but I don't think they'll be dominating anyone.
Okay, and no Lewandowski in this first game, is that right?
It looks like he might be out injured, but from various things you look at, of course they're missing Milik as well. I think so. First game's Netherlands, who I quite like. I think they've got a good, strong team all the way through, but they've kind of disappointed in recent times, haven't they? But I do like them for this.
Do you like Netherlands, Daniel?
I think they'll hammer Poland. I think. I mean, kind of opposite light horses. Maybe I'd call Poland. I think they are possibly, after Georgia, the worst team in the tournament. Certainly because they haven't got Lewandowski. You look at their qualifying record. I mean, they lost in Moldova. They finished 4 points behind Albania in qualifying. They are not a good team at the moment, and everything that they have is clearly built around Lewandowski, and he's not going to be here in this first game. And I think they're clearly going to try and shut up shop and defend it out. But that Netherlands team has got so much movement, so much pace. We've seen in this tournament, we've only had 2 days, but the theme of it so far has been those attacking midfielders who can drift and dip into space and be skillful and run with the ball. You were talking Wirtz and Musiala, and we're talking Ndoye, and we're talking Lamine Yamal. So Netherlands have got 3-4 of those players. I think Xavi Simons might have a field day against Poland.
All right. Well, that game is going to be kicking things off for us on Sunday, 2:00 at the Volksparkstadion in Hamburg. Of course, on Sunday night, we'll be back here preparing a fresh new podcast for Monday morning, and our efforts will be live streamed to you via the magic of Liam there in the booth alongside producer Charlie. Magnificent. I think we're going to go back and drop Horn in when ready rather than have him at this end of the show. So there you go. So what I'll do now is I'll wrap this up and then we'll go back and do the thing. Any word from Horn? Just no word from Horn. Okay, so back post Sunday night. Yeah, I can't remember what I was just saying. Oh yeah, excellent. And producer Charlie in the booth. For tonight, it's many, many thanks to Paul Balouse and Carl Anker and possibly James Horncastle, fingers crossed. And James Horncastle for joining us earlier. To Daniel Storey there in his gaudily lit bedroom. And JJ Bull here in the entirely sombre athletic studio. And you, whether it's on YouTube or in the classic version podcast, for joining us. See you Sunday evening / Monday morning. Hurrah.